Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Is Prince2 Better Than PMP? I'm Isabella, your moderator. I'm genuinely excited about this session because this is the question we all ask ourselves at some point in our project management careers. Whether you're just starting out, thinking about your next certification, or deciding between these two heavyweight qualifications, you're in exactly the right place. There's a lot of noise out there about which certification is better, but honestly, it's rarely that simple. That's why we brought in an expert who can cut through the confusion and give you real actionable guidance. Over the next hour, we're going to explore Prince2 and PMP from every angle: the exams, the course, the career outcomes, the global job market, and most importantly, which one is right for you. So stick with us. By the end of this session, you will have the clarity on your next move. Now we're going to move to session agenda. Here's what we are covering in our 60 minutes together. Why this comparison matters. Because the answer depends entirely on where you are, where you want to go, and what you're trying to achieve. Global job market trends, which regions favor which certification, and what that means for your career. The exams themselves, pass rates, study difficulty, cost, and entry requirements that might surprise you. Real-world adoption, which Fortune 500 companies use Prince2, which mandate PMP, and why it matters to you. Your decision, a practical guide to choosing what's right for your situation. A live Q&A. We've received some brilliant questions during pre-registration, and we will be working through those, plus any live questions you have. Ready? Let's get started. Before we dive into the content, I want to introduce the expert who's guiding us through this today. Debashish Jena, also known as DJ, brings over 22 years of industry experience to the table. He's trained more than 22,000 professionals in Prince2, PMP, Prince2 Agile, MSP, and CAPM across IT, consulting, and global service organizations. But here's what makes Debashish different. He's not just speaking theory. He's worked in senior roles at leading consulting firms, designed customized corporate training programs across the UK, India, Africa, and the Middle East. And he's refined highly effective exam preparation strategies that deliver outstanding pass rates. His teaching philosophy is all about exam readiness through focused preparation rather than endless self-study. He's practical, scenario-driven, and genuinely invested in your success. DJ, welcome. Ready to help everyone here make the right decision for their career?
Right. Thank you so much, Isabella. And welcome all. So what's Prince2? Well, the world's most popular project management method. And Prince2 is a structured method. The reason we say structured is it provides a clear guidelines on what processes to apply to a Prince2 project, in what would be the flow, what artifacts to make. So it's highly structured. And geographic strength, well, Prince2 is widely adopted in the UK, Europe, public sector organizations. Prince2 is very, very popular. And it has become a standard for the government-funded projects and regulatory industries. So because of its governance, the strength of Prince2 is governance. That's the reason public sector and regulatory industries prefer Prince2 as the method. When I say governance, so how does Prince2 offer that? So it has defined roles. Prince2 talks about certain roles that any project must have. Like there has to be a project manager, a team manager, project support, project assurance, project board. These are some roles. And for each of these roles, Prince2 clearly defines responsibilities. What falls on the plate of project manager? What does assurance do? What's onto the board? So there's clear distinction here to avoid any conflicts, right? So that's how we ensure that every role is playing their responsibilities. for Prince2 to work effectively. Decision making. Now, Prince2 has clear guidelines on who makes what level of decisions. There are multiple levels of management involved in a Prince2 project. So just to give you an idea, we got team members down there doing the technical work. Then there is team manager. We call that as the delivering level. Then there's project manager, the managing level. We call this as the delivering level. Project manager representing the managing level. Why? Because project manager does the day-to-day management of the project. And we have at the top, the project board sitting here, call them as the directing level, right? So there are multiple levels of management involved in a Prince2 project. So in fact, these are the three levels. Team members, they are not a part of management. They do execute the technical stuff in the project. So now there's clear guidelines on who makes what level of decisions. So there are tolerances set for each level of management and escalation defined so as to avoid any confusion around who would be deciding what. I'm sure you can appreciate right decision-making, timely decision-making is a key contributor towards making a project successful. A lot depends on decision-making. Prince2 provides a framework for ensuring that decisions are made at the right time by the right level of management to ensure success. Prince2 offers stage gates. So Prince2 project is always divided into a number of stages, and we mandate a review at the end of every stage to check if there is continued justification to proceed with the project, to check we do have a viable plan for the next stage, to check whether dependencies, any for the next stage, have been addressed, right? Thus ensuring that our next stage runs in a structured manner. And if the justification is gone, we better not execute it as is. We amend our plans and in extreme cases, even stop the project, right? Ensuring accountability and control, the way I partially talked about, the responsibilities clearly state who is responsible for what, accountable for what. So Prince2 has clear guidance on accountability. So there are RACI charts created for every activity. Who is responsible, who is accountable, who to be consulted, and who is to be informed. So that's how it clearly defines accountability with the various participants in a project. That's precisely how Prince2 offers governance. So I must say governance is the strength of Prince2, right? Now let's take a look at PMP. We're talking about Prince2 and PMP here. PMP stands for Project Management Professional, right? So, well, I would say global recognition. So PMP happens to be the most widely recognized project management credential worldwide. Yeah, that's right. In fact, in terms of numbers, it would outweigh Prince2, but Prince2 is not far behind. So PMP and Prince2 both are credible, certifications recognized across the globe. So in terms of numbers, PMP has surpassed over 1 million certified professionals. Knowledge-based approach. So PMP focuses on knowledge. So in fact, to better understand that, let me tell you the technical difference between PMBOK and Prince2. Let's understand this way. So PMP and Prince2. So you already understand one difference is where they come from. Prince2 comes from the UK government. It's coming from the UK government, the Cabinet Office, part of the UK government, who came up with this guidance, Prince2. While talking about PMP, PMP comes from Project Management Institute, PMI, which is in US. It's Pennsylvania in the US. It's a non-profit organization that was established a long time ago. So that's one difference where they come from. And another difference is which one is recognized where. There are certain geographies where Prince has seen relatively more recognition, elsewhere PMP has seen. I'll talk about that in subsequent slides. But let's now take a look at the technical difference, between the two. Well, PMP is the credential. The guidance is known as PMBOK. So PMP exam is based on this publication. PMBOK is the publication of PMI, and it stands for Project Management Body of Knowledge. That's what PMBOK stands for. That's the primary reference for the PMP exam. So the difference between PMBOK and PRINCE. Here's the difference. As in the name, PMBOK is a body of knowledge, while PRINCE is not a body of knowledge. Then what's PRINCE? PRINCE is a method. Here is the technical difference between the two, a BOK versus a method. Now, I'm sure you'd be wondering, how does a BOK vary from a method? Well, simply put, BOKs happen to be more descriptive. Any body of knowledge, for that matter, PMBOK here, it describes several good practices in project management, right? And while methods prescribe a certain way of executing the project. Methods are more guiding. They do prescribe. To explain this difference, descriptive versus prescriptive, let me quote a couple of examples. So PMBOK talks about 49 project management processes. This I quote from the 6th edition of PMBOK. There are a total of 49 project management processes that are known to exist. PMBOK talks about. But now here's a question. If I am managing my project using PMBOK concepts, so do I go and implement all of them? No, not at all. There's a clear disclaimer. These are 49 that do exist. Doesn't mean you go apply them all in your project. So project manager has to pick up a subset of this, given the nature, size, complexity of the project. So maybe your pick case, I'm going to implement 30 of these, or maybe 40 of them, right? Depends. But sure, you're not going to apply all of this. I'll compare this bit with PRINCE2. What does PRINCE2 say here? Well, PRINCE2 talks about 7 processes, just 7 of them. But point to be noted, can I do that? I pick up 5 of them and apply in my project? No. You got to implement them all, or else you don't apply PRINCE2. You have to apply it in totality, else the benefit is gone. So all the 7 processes are compulsory. You got to apply, unlike PMBOK, right? Couple of more examples. Now, PRINCE talks about roles. It says have these roles, all right? Roles and responsibilities, right? I just spoke. And what about PMBOK? PMBOK is silent on roles. It's silent. It doesn't make a recommendation on what roles are required in the project. It leaves it to the project manager to decide. So given your project, go ahead, feel free to design roles and define responsibilities for them, all right? It doesn't mandate, right? Likewise, PRINCE talks about certain artifacts. You got to develop some documents, certain artifacts. It's talked about 15 documents, by the way, 15 of them. So now PMBOK has a lot more, I would say, all right? But again, same thing. Am I going to create all the documents? Now, so it's like this. That's what I meant as prescriptive. You know, PMBOK is a collection of best practices, which it presents in the form of 49 processes. I'm not going to apply all of them. I would pick up a subset of this, whatever I find relevant for my project. While PRINCE2 has to be applied in totality. And while I say that, let it not mean that PRINCE2 is rigid. Now, there's tailoring. You can always customize the method. You can tailor it. But you can tailor it, that's fine, but doesn't mean you implement 6 of these processes. No, you got to implement all of them. So that is one way we could differentiate. PMBOK, being a body of knowledge, is more descriptive, while PRINCE2 being a method, it prescribes a certain way to execute your project. I'll do one last thing here to better understand the difference. Let's say I'm a project manager and I want to practice some structured project management in my project. Let's understand what all things do I need. Look, I certainly need a method that tells me what roles to have, what processes to implement, what documents to make, and so on. And for this method, what choices do I have? Well, of course, you can use PRINCE, okay, which is a proven method, right? By the way, many organizations would have their own custom developed method. Even that, many organizations would have a department as project management office. They would have created a customized method for their organization that suits them. So either use that custom method or use Prince. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Prince2 is a proven method. So lots of project use and success was seen. You can directly count on Prince2 as is, if you wish. But we certainly need a method, whether it is Prince or a custom method, or you create one. If none exists, you create one, all right? But we certainly need a method, all right? But now, next thing, whatever your method, be it the custom method of our organization or Prince, now methods say several things. Methods say do build a plan, do estimate, do monitor your project, and so on. But now one question remains, how do I do that? What estimation techniques do I use? What scheduling technique do I use? So methods lack one thing, that is detailed project management tools and techniques. Okay, so detailed project management tools and techniques. When I say tools and techniques, for example, to quote a few, scheduling technique like critical path method, estimation technique like analogous estimating, parametric, 3-point, right? Monitoring technique like earned value technique. Just named a few methods. There are hundreds of them. So what I was trying to convey is that just the method is not enough. So me as a PM, on top of a method, I should have an understanding of these detailed project management tools and techniques. And where do I learn them from? Well, you can learn them from anywhere, but PMBOK is a very nice collection for these detailed project management tools and techniques. All right. So from a knowledge perspective, PMBOK is good. So I had this last discussion to convey how the two can be simultaneously applied in the project. Take a look. There's no conflict here. The way they can fit is Prince2 adopted as the method. All right. So we would implement every process, have every role, create the documents that Prince2 says. And to do so, the detailed techniques that I need, the knowledge that I need, I can take it from PMBOK. Okay, so that would be a way to understand the technical difference between PMBOK and Prince and how they could actually complement your delivery. Right? With this understanding, let's get back and see more about PMP. So that's why I said it's a knowledge-based approach. It focuses on knowledge, all right? All knowledge that a project manager needs to have. Leadership focus is a lot there. So PMBOK has extensive guidance on leadership, all sort of leadership, traditional leadership, servant leadership, everything, stakeholder engagement, how to manage adaptive projects. So it's not just about predictive or traditional. No matter what life cycle model your project uses, agile, iterative, incremental, predictive, PMBOK can be used, or PMP can be applied in all of these environments, right? So that's a view of what's PMP. Now let's take a look at job market demand worldwide. So both are pretty much popular certifications, well recognized across the industry, right? But here is some geographic trend. So PMP dominates the US, Canada, multinational corporations, multinational companies mostly inclined more towards PMP. And while Prince2 takes a lead when it comes to UK, Europe at large, I would say, Australia, government sectors. So these are certain areas where Prince has seen relatively more recognition, right? So both of them appear in international job descriptions. Many places you would see Prince2 as a mandatory qualification for a particular project management position. Elsewhere, you would see PMP as a mandatory requirement, or at least desired, preferred, if not mandatory as well. Even Asia Pacific markets have seen recognition for both the qualifications. So industry research shows that PMP enjoys broader global recognition, as you know, while Prince2 has a regional dominance, in Europe, UK, Australia, we spoke, even Commonwealth nations. There's In Commonwealth nations, I have myself been to several to deliver Prince2 trainings and all. So Prince2 has seen good recognition in such Commonwealth countries as well.